It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome into Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here. Appreciate you tuning in this week. Appreciate you tuning in last week and turning in too. This week's guest is a very dear friend of mine, been on here for a long time. You see him every week here on Shop 24, and his name is Eddy Reese. And come back, we're going to talk about some things you may not know about Eddy and our association. So stay where you are, get that pen, be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and today's guest is a friend of mine, a friend of yours, a friend of the station, and his name is Eddy Reese, and he's the host of Shop 24 and a bunch of other things. Welcome to the show, Eddy Reese.
Ken, it's good to be with you, absolutely, and it's wonderful to have the opportunity to talk to one of my heroes, Ken Rollins.
All right, this is going to be my show. You can't take it over.
Okay.
And with no phones to answer, don't be saying Shop 24.
There could be a deal ringing any moment out there right now for you veterans out there.
There's no rallies thing. There's no top of the river. None of that today. This is the awesomest show. What I wanted you on here for today is every time I see you on anything on television, you're always talking about the veterans. You're always praising the veterans and you kudos to them, shout outs. And let me ask you something. Is there veterans in your family, a history of them go back?
There is, Ken. I, of course, having uncles that served and of course they married my dad's sisters and took them all over the country. But there is, but that's not really, that was a part of my love for veterans. But to be quite honest, it came a little bit later on in life when I was the recreation director for Calhoun County. A gentleman by the name of Howard Norton first introduced me to you there at back in the late 90s. And when I came over to the memorial wall for the first time, and I started walking through there and heard the story about the crack in the wall and how amazingly it was healed almost overnight. I know you've shared that story with the listeners, viewers here. But at that time, I had a gracious opportunity to meet a woman by her name, Ed Upner.
Monji Upner.
And when I met her and I heard her story, talking about her husband, Sergeant Ed Upner, at that point in time is when I realized for the first time the sacrifices that were made by the veterans, their families, and from that moment on I made a commitment that once I found his name on the wall, went down to Coldwater where we have a monument for him, that I would from that point on, radio, television, anytime I was in the public, I would never forget to remind people just how special and wonderful our veterans are. Well,
you do that, Eddy, and I'm not saying it because you're sitting here, because I watch you, and every chance you have, you say, we have this or that. We have that based on the backs of veterans, and that is that's absolutely true, because if not for the veterans, what would we have out there? But there's a lot of, when I have a guest on the show, I ask them where they get this, where it comes from, and so I'm proud you told that story. There was we could do a 2-hour show based upon the miracle at the wall, but man, Ms. Upner, her husband, that was in 1965. He's been missing, and is today in 2013. She's never found out the real truth about what happened to her husband. Nobody found or anything over in Vietnam. So, a lot of different things associated with war, and I appreciate when you have the opportunity for a microphone to say those things, and all the veterans out there. That's a friend of mine. Appreciate you doing that.
Well, absolutely, Ken. And the thing, when I started doing radio and television, I was proud to be introduced to Jeff Cook of the group Alabama. And when his wife Lisa was co-hosting our show, Traveling Alabama, we started traveling around, and everywhere we went, we had the privilege to meeting these veterans. They would always show up and we talked. And because Alabama, the group, has done so much, which you have a lot of ties to, and from your days in country music. And when we started doing this, Jeff created this logo for me with the eagle. And he said, Eddy, I noticed you're always talking about freedom and the veterans, so he created this logo for us to have for our shows. And it just, as I met these veterans, heard their stories, as you well know from your show, what a privilege television gives us to come into people's homes. And I just knew, since I had never served, that one way I could serve was continuing to remind the public how important our veterans are. And I encouraged, as I travel around the state doing shows, if every one of the people in their local community would just go to their local memorial wall, pick out one name on that wall, and I started working with teachers, started going to the classrooms, and a lot of the elementary schools started doing this, because then it makes it real.
Yeah.
You know, these aren't just names that are in granite or in stone. These are real people that came from communities that did not come home. And least or less we forget, as John Wayne said, it's the most important thing. And so that was the one way I knew I could be in service to my country, by doing this.
Well, let me say this, someone who's worn the uniform, I say it on here more than a dozen times. You don't have to have worn a uniform to have patriotism. It takes a lot of people to keep this country safe. And people who lift up the veterans who have served and lift up the families of the veterans who served. Because this is another part that people say, well, so-and-so is overseas, but the wife and the kids are left back home. So they are veterans too, as far as I'm concerned. But you talk the talk and you walk the walk. You have an opportunity to use that bully pulpit, that whatever, to talk about it. And it's not, we're not doing it just for the show today. You do that every time you get a chance. And the thing about you is talking about the names on the walls. They've got memorials all over the state of Alabama. You're the ambassador to Alabama, and you got the parks. So how did you get that title, by the way?
Well, actually, in 2002, Senator Del Marsh saw one of our programs at Jack State on TV 24. He carried me to Montgomery, and I had the outdoor Alabama. At that time, it was just the outdoor report, and we went and met with the governor and the conservation director, and we created the Outdoor Alabama Show. And when we created the Outdoor Alabama Show for the state, Senator Marsh, one of the gracious things he's ever done for me, was through that introduction, gave us a chance to promote the state parks of Alabama, the outdoor conservation for Alabama. But when I got to know the governor, they got to know me, they realized that I had a passion for this state, so they made me an ambassador for the state for creating CSN. It's a grassroots television, radio, media network covering the best in Alabama. So CSN stands for Community Sports Network, Community Shopping Network, Community Service Network. And so by giving the title as ambassador for the state, they knew that as we continue to do these shows, that we would have the opportunity to do so much for the state, for our veterans, for communities, for tourism. And at that time, no one was doing that. As for, overall, every community was doing something special. But I know we've got to go to break, but we'll come back. But again, it was for creating CSN.
That's a great deal. I know that we got these great parks and things in the state of Alabama, and we did this thing here called Veterans Moment. And one of the things is the legislature passed a bill saying that veterans could have free entry to these parks on the holidays, and that was a bill that was just passed. So we got to, as you said, we got to tell you, I don't know how you knew we had to go to a break, but we really do. We really do. And they are signals that are given that said that. But anyhow, we got to go to a pause. Come back. We're going to talk more with Eddy Reese. Get your pen. Stay where you are. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, talking about Eddy Reese. Eddy has been as a host of TV Shop 24 here on TV 24, and a bunch of other things, and you've heard some of them in the first part. So now we're going to go back to Eddy. Eddy, as we went to a commercial, I was talking about this thing we have here on television on TV 24 called Veterans Moments. And what that is, in a nutshell, is the people, our legislators in Montgomery passed legislation. And it's like the tree fell in the forest that you hear it. If they pass the legislation, there's no way for the veterans in the state of Alabama to find out. Only by the way of TV 24 do they have a way to find out what laws were passed. And so every week I do a new Veterans Moment. That came out of a conversation you and I talked about, that we need to get the legislature to let people know what they passed. If you go down and pass good legislation and nobody knows about it, you know, we got Randy Wood, Dale Mars, Steve Hurst, Cale Brown, and Barbara Boyd, and they passed legislation that benefits veterans, and the veterans never know about it. They say, you don't, how did that happen, you know? So that's what we were talking about when we went to that.
Absolutely, Ken, and sitting down with you earlier in the year, thought it was a fantastic idea, and I'm so pleased. The great thing about TV 24, reaching 18 counties, we're able to get that message out through your show, and now the day-to-day Did You Know information. But because of our conversation, being Alabama ambassador, I looked at ways how we could do this statewide outside of the TV 24 area. And that's where we're creating the Veterans Radio Network, which we're excited about doing because of what you're doing, and have the privilege to work with the veterans and the legislature and getting that information out on a timely manner. So again, Ken, you've served the veterans in so many ways, but a tremendous idea, getting the veterans information where they can get it by going to one place. You've been, serving these 18 counties for quite some time and serving the state. So again, my hat's off to you, because it was a brilliant idea, and we're looking forward to 2014, working with your organization, working with the legislation and the members of the House there, helping them reach the veterans on a timely manner.
We have at the State Board of Veterans Affairs, which is the Department of Veterans Affairs of the state of Alabama, we have a legislative coordinator who's an attorney, and she, every year, she brings me the legislation that was passed, the beneficial just for veterans. And there was one that was just, it was like they passed a bill that allowed 19-year-olds to purchase an automobile. And I thought, but I remember back to the days of Vietnam that you could serve your country and shoot, but you couldn't buy beer if you wanted to. So here you are, you got to be 21 to sign a contract to buy a car, but you could have served 3 terms in Afghanistan.
Right.
And that was, Alabama changed that law, and I thought, that's good stuff there. That is really good stuff. And then another thing is, let's say that you're stationed in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and your husband gets orders to go to Maxwell Air Force Base or Fort Rooker. The wife has a job, and she's uprooted. She couldn't draw unemployment in the state of Alabama because she was not a resident. They passed a law that if you're uprooted by orders, military orders, then you can draw unemployment. And that was things like that they passed that, people don't know that.
Right.
Unless you get on here on Did You Know?
Absolutely. Veterans issues.
Yeah, that's what
Absolutely.
I'm talking about. Well, you mentioned a name here, Jeff Cook, the group Alabama.
Right.
They used to be called Wild Country. When I was associated with them, that's what
Correct.
they was called. And making a long story short, Jeff, during some of our conversations, he was working over in Myrtle Beach, and I'd have to call and leave information about booking dates, and he'd pick them up at the office and that kind of thing, back in the old days. But anyhow, Jeff had mentioned to me about he had worked at Anniston Army Depot. And so that got me to thinking one day. I was on a tour with Don Williams, and I was getting tired of the road, and I made a decision based on Jeff. Jeff don't know that. But
No,
I
he does know that.
I got my job
No,
at the
he
depot.
knows that. Yes, I told him that
I
story.
got my job at the depot because Jeff had told me about the how he had used, as a Vietnam veterans, called a VRA program. Anyhow, that said, what else are we leaving out here on this thing?
Well, one of the things, Ken, and like I said, for the folks that follow your show, they know you get this information out. But as you sit down with me and you were talking about it, then it became apparent that our veterans, of course, what good is it for them if they don't know about it?
Yeah, and their families.
And of course, and I'm like you. When I see a veteran, I see the whole family.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing that I think Ken Rollins continues to bring to our community, to the state. And I'm glad of your appointment last year, because again, I think you give our community in the state a great vision and a great heart for veterans. And but what we're working with the radio network and what we're doing with this, we are certainly in 2014 going to be challenged to be able to do all these things, but we will make it happen. And I know that we'll be in Montgomery 2 days a week, working from an office there, and we will make sure, above all else, with your help and the different Veterans Association, being an ambassador for the state means nothing to me if I can't be an ambassador for the veterans.
Yeah, well, there's 450,000 of us in Alabama, and when you're driving down the road and you're listening to the radio and you don't ever hear anything anymore about veterans, did you know? It used to be public service announcements that you had to do. The media didn't have to do that anymore, so you don't hear them anymore. Nobody bothers to tell them. So if we don't do it, then who is going to do it?
Right. Well, I know this is your show, but would you mind if I indulge me for 1 minute?
If they're not going to sell anything with Popeye.
We got a great deal. No. But the truth is, Ken, you inspire all of us. And I just wanted to take the time. I appreciate it when you come on. We have radio shows on WDNG. When I call on you, you're always there. I'm proud of our wall. I'm proud of the fight that you put up personally and bringing all the veterans together to make that happen. When I travel around this state, when I mention Anniston, Alabama, I mention Calhoun County, Ken Rollins' name comes up all the time.
You told him I didn't do it, didn't you?
And I told him that he probably did. And what people may not know, and I'm sure they do, watching your show, Ken's got the most awesomeness, personality, and he's a jokester. So anywhere we go, I never know what he's going to say or where it may be. But just cannot thank you enough for your service to our country. As you talked about many times, the blank check that you wrote or you signed when you signed up. But how fortunate for us that Ken Rollins went, answered that call, and today, with what you do through veterans issues and everything else,
I gotta get some money out now.
You've made a tremendous difference, and it's an honor to say that. I wished that every community had a program like this, and that's where we're working because of what you're doing. We're able to look at it and say, Ken's done it right, and we need to do something like this across the state.
Well, we got 67 counties, and I'm just wondering, in those 67 counties, a lot of them are watching us. How many of them have got a WEAC TV 24? I don't know of any others. This is the ownership, management of this station should be proud, and they rewarded them with the plaques and things, but there's no way any plaque can take care of the appreciation we have for them allowing us to do this.
Well, and you're right, and that's a perfect lead-in to the good folks here at TV 24, because again, it's all about community for them, and again, we're thankful for TV 24 for everything that they give for both of us and all the veterans.
Yeah, but we went through a show so fast, it's 3 minutes, but we did a whole show.
Now, when are you going to come be on my show?
Yes, sir. I'll be on there. Oh, you're talking about the shop?
Yes.
Oh, I get so confused. I'd probably be giving away Kentucky Fried Chicken instead of Popeyes.
Well, let me tell you, Kentucky Fried Chicken, we love them too.
I hear you. But Eddie, I appreciate you being on the show, buddy. I really do.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Ken.
And this is a awesome thing. What is this thing before we go?
The AutoCast 365, that will be the radio network that we're broadcasting.
AutoCast 365.
Yep.
Well, somebody up there in the booth is telling me that I'm overtime, so I got to go. Got to go to a break, come back. I got news that you can use. Stay where you are. Be right back. Get the pen. Welcome back to Veterans Issues, and this is the part that news that you can use, so get the pen ready. First, before I start this, because I want to thank Eddie for being on the show today, Eddie Reese, and I want to start by the folks over in Birmingham, Pleasant Grove, Irondale. You've been fussing at me about I don't ever say anything about you. I don't ever talk about Chapter 416 Vietnam veterans, and the folks down in Clanton and my buddies up in Oneonta, all you folks out there. It's not that I don't think about you. I just don't have enough time. So this time, 416, back off, get off my back. I am talking about you, and those of you that see this, tell the other guys that Ken's on here talking about Chapter 416 in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, and then let's see, I got Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is, as you watch this show, you're going to be sitting down eating that turkey, and if there's a family down the street you know is in need, you may not know all the things, but just take a little something you got left there, share with the ones down the street or up the street, and find somebody to make this a real Thanksgiving for others that's more in need, and keep the spirit of what Thanksgiving's all about. Now, we showed you the law enforcement tag. Bill Partridge was on here last week. This tag will help build the memorials up in Anniston, and it'll also, let's see, it's up there. It is right there. Bingo, kids who knows what to do. But that tag will, the 90% of that will go to help build the memorial up here in Anniston, and the other 10% will go to the memorial up in Washington, D.C. to maintain that. So That tag should be available. If it's not right now, it'll be by the first of the year. So look for that when you go down and get one. And I'm going to whisper something to you, but don't tell anybody. But if law enforcement's following you and they see that shield on the back of it with that rose in there, they're probably going to think that you support law enforcement. And maybe you're going a little couple miles an hour over the speed limit. You might get a break. Not going to say they're going to do that, but it does look better than them little stickers you got on your car. It's on the 3rd, next week, on December the 3rd at 12 noon. If you got some children that would like to meet Santa, we're going to have him on the show next week. And so at 12 noon Tuesday, come down here at TV 24 here in Oxford. And you got my contact information if you want to bring someone and you will need directions how to get here, whatever. Just give me a call on this number right here that kids has got on the screen, and that way they can meet Santa. Santa's going to be my guest next week because Santa does a lot of things, wood carving and things like that people benefit from here locally. So another thing I told you about paying it forward. If you want to feel good, you notice that if you watch Eddy Reese, you always say, tell 3 people you love them and you'll make 4 people happy or something like that. I'm going to tell you, paying it forward. I did it on the way here this morning. Again, I do it every day, every week. I try to pay it forward for somebody. I was going through a line at a fast food place. I said, how much is that one behind me? $4.20. I paid it forward. I don't know what those people got, but I asked them to pay it forward somewhere else, hoping that they will. And if we just get everybody doing something for someone and paying it forward, I feel so good when I do it. I want to share that with you. Try it sometime. I got people that come up to me and say, hey, I did what you tell me. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. So you really make people's day by doing things like that. And their weeks. It gives them reinstill their faith in humankind. Anyhow, remember the thing that Chief Parcher talked about here. We're in the holidays. Don't stack your stuff in the front seat where everybody can see it. Don't be aware of your surroundings when you're going. Don't put the boxes out on the street showing that you just bought a new television. People know that's what's in your house. Don't go on Facebook and say I'm having a good time here in Florida because you're telling the bad guys where you are. So wait till you come back to show those pictures. We got to go. It's let's see. This week's salute's going to go to all those who serve and protect, and that's in every uniform, whether it's local, state, county, or the military, and this salutes for you. And happy Thanksgiving. See you here next week on Veterans Issues. Salute.